In today's lesson, we're going to review our bow hold, review the notes of the D string, and learn the D major scale with the bow. Welcome back. Welcome to the studio. My name is Cassie and I'm a professional violist and teaching artist. I hope these videos will serve as a guide for the beginner violist or even those of you who are a little bit more advanced. In our last lesson, we learned how to play a few songs on the A string, and it's been a while since we visited the D string, so let's review quickly the notes on the D string, and then we'll get our instrument tuned, and we will go over the D major scale. So D string, if I put my first finger down, is E, second finger not touching is F sharp, that's a high 2, and third finger is G. And then if I go over to the A string, it's A, B, C sharp, D. And that is all the notes of our D major scale. So before we get started, I forgot to remind you last lesson to tighten your bow. So tighten your bow, again, that screw away from you. And we want to make sure that there's about a pinky's width between the stick and the hair. That's how we know it's tight enough. So now that we've got our bow tightened, we're going to go over how to tune our A string and our D string with our bow, because we've done that plucking, but we haven't done it with the bow yet. So I'm going to be looking at my tuner, and I'm going to make sure that my A register is an A on the tuner. We don't want A sharp, we don't want G sharp. We want it to read A440. So I'm going to set my bow on the string, hand up here to support. I'm going to put it in the middle, and I'm going to very gently draw across the string and watch what the tuner registers. So it makes a smiley face when it's in tune, and I'll put a link to this tuner down below. It's called Tonal Energy Tuner. It's different than the one that I used before, which is a free online tuner. This one's an app. So I just happen to be in tune. I'm going to take my fine tuner and make myself out of tune so we can go over that process again. So hand on the shoulder, set your bow in the middle, and I'm going to look at what the tuner is registering. Well, it says A, but it's reading flat, and flat means too low. So just a reminder, I'm going to bring my hand underneath the instrument to the A fine tuner, which is the one that is closest to the right hand side, and I'm going to turn it clockwise a little bit and then see what the tuner registers. Still a little bit too low. I'm going to repeat that process. Twist it clockwise, back to support on the shoulder. We're almost there. It's still reading a little bit flat, so I'll give it a little baby twist. Okay, now we're good. It made a big smiley face for me. I'm going to do the same process with my D string. Middle of the bow. That one registers in tune. I'm going to make it out of tune too high so we can see what that process is like. So hand underneath. We're not on the A fine tuner, we're on the D fine tuner this time. That's a little bit too high, so I'm going to make it counterclockwise or loosen the screw to make it lower. We're just a little high, so a little baby twist. Good, I've got my smiley face. So now, just in case you don't have access to a tuner, I'm going to play my A string, and I want you to try to match your A string to my A string with your bow. So I'm going to play a nice long A. Hopefully you were able to match it within that time frame. If not, just go back, review the video, or get your tuner out and try to check the tuning yourself. Same thing with D. So if you are having a hard time hearing whether your note matches my note, that's totally fine. This is called ear training. It's something that we have to work at. It's something that if you go to college to be a musician, that you have like 4 years of classes in learning how to do that. So if it's more difficult for you to hear it trying to match my string, just go back to your tuner, because the tuner will tell you it's either too high or too low, and then you won't have to guess. So now that we've got our instrument tuned, we've got our bow tightened, we are ready to learn those D string notes. So let's just quickly review our bow hold in rocket ship position. We want that curvy thumb that makes a loop with our middle finger. Ring finger is covering the frog's eye, or that circle. Pinky is curved on top. You want that beautiful arched shape, no straight fingers, nice and arched. And if you're having trouble arching those fingers, I want you to imagine that you're on a motorcycle and you're revving that engine. So vroom, you want to get that wrist dropped a little bit. So pinky curved and pointer finger is separated a little bit from that middle finger, maybe about a finger's width. Once you've got that bow hold in place, we're going to go to rest position, playing position, and set your bow on the D string in the middle. Scoot your hand down to first position, tap your thumb, make sure it's nice and released. Double check, did your bow hold make that transition okay? And we're going to play open D, first finger E, second finger F sharp, third finger G. Good, let's do that one more time. E, F sharp, G. Just a quick reminder about our hand frame. Our first finger does not touch our second finger, but our second finger does touch our third finger. So now that we've got those D string notes, we have to talk about how to transition between the strings, because we haven't had to do that yet. So I'm going to use my elbow to go between strings. So I'm going to go back to playing position. I'm going to set my bow on the A string, and I'm going to use just my elbow, my bow elbow, to go to the D string. So my elbow should go up. And if I go from D to G, it goes up again. G to C is up again. So let's try that. From the A to the D, G, C. And you can kind of feel how each string has its own level in your elbow. It should feel like that, like you're clicking into a different floor with your elevator. Let's try that again. We're going to go down to the C string and then back up to the A string. So elbow up, 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 elbow down, down, down. Notice you're not hearing sounds as I'm crossing the string. I'm keeping a little bit of arm weight. We talked about sinking in from the shoulder, so I'm keeping that arm weight into the string so my bow doesn't move back and forth as I go between strings. Let's try that again. Down to the C string, and to the A string. Let's do a couple more. Double check, is your elbow moving? Shouldn't be your wrist. We don't want to keep our elbow low and just have our wrist do all the work. You want your elbow to be in charge. Good, I'm going to call it a string and I want you to stop on that string and we're going to do a quick down bow to the floor, up bow to the sky. Let's stop on D. So down bow to the floor, up bow to the sky. And we're stopping at the middle each time. Let's do those elevators again. And our next string is the A string. Down bow to the floor, up bow to the sky. Good, and one last time. Let's try the G string. Down bow, up bow. Good, let's go back to rest position. So now that we kind of know how to use our elbow to get between strings, we're going to talk about the D major scale, which is the finger patterns that we know already. So it's open D, first finger, high second finger, touching third finger. And then I'm going to drop my elbow to the A string and do that same exact pattern. Open A, first finger, high second finger, third finger. And that'll get us our very first scale. So let's try that. Let's go to playing position. Check your bow hold and rocket ship position. Curvy thumb, curvy pinky. And remember that you can also put your thumb underneath here on the ferrule if that feels more stable to you. I'm going to set my bow in the middle on the D string. And I'm going to do that first pattern. Open 1, high 2, 3. First finger. High second, third. Now freeze here, drop that elbow till you feel it change to the A string, and we're going to do the same exact pattern. 1, high 2, 3. So up until now, we haven't talked about putting marks on the fingerboard. You may have seen this for some beginners. They have marks where their fingers should go. There's other ways that we can tell without having those marks if we're in tune or not. So the tuner is a really great resource. So if I put my first finger down and I've got my tuner on and it doesn't register an E if we're on the D string, if it's telling us we're too high or too low, we can adjust our finger accordingly. What I don't advocate is that you kind of smudge all over that fingerboard looking for the note. If it's wrong, lift it up and then reset it. The other great tool that we have is to hear if those notes are ringing, and that's especially true for our third finger. So let's go back to playing position, scooch back down to first position, and I'm going to set my third finger on the D string for the note G. Set your bow on the string, check your bow hold, and I'm going to play that G and listen to that ringing sound that I get. So So the note lasts after I remove my finger. If you can't hear that ring on your instrument, you could also lift your elbow up to the G string, play that open G, and then try to match that third finger to that sound. I can do that with any open string and the next highest string third finger. So let's try that with open D and third finger on the A string, D. If that was out of tune, it would sound like this. That's a lot high, so I need to take my finger off the string and adjust it a little bit lower. There's that ringing sound. If it's too low, you hear I don't get that ringing sound? So I know I have to lift it off and reset it higher. So we're going to try that D major scale again, and I want you to listen for those really ringing third fingers. If your finger doesn't ring, just remember, lift it and reset it. So let's go to playing position, scooch down to first position, set your bow in the middle, double check your bow hold, curvy fingers, curvy thumb, curvy pinky, and we're going to use that martelé stroke, so from the middle of our bow to the tip, opening and closing our elbow to do that D major scale. So open D, E, F sharp, G, nice and ringy I hope, drop your elbow to the A string, first finger B, high 2 C sharp, third finger ringing on D. Good, let's try that no stops. I'm not going to say anything this time. So open D, hopefully both of your third fingers were nice and ringy. So we're going to do the same thing in reverse now. We're going to start 3 fingers on the A string, which is our note D, and we're going to go backwards. So D, C sharp, B, open A, and then think about which way your elbow has to go to get to the D string. We're going to plop 3 for G, 2 for F sharp, 1 for E, and then no fingers for D. So go to playing position, check your bow hold in rocket ship position, curvy curvy, slide your hand down, and we're going to plop 3 fingers on the A string for the note D. We're listening for that ring. Ready? Go. 2, 1, open A, freeze, pick your elbow up to the D string, 2, 1, open. So let's do that same thing, and we're going to try to make the time that we have between the A string and the plopping of the 3 fingers on the D string a little bit less this time. So 3 fingers on A, set your bow in the middle, do your checks, nice straight wrist, thumb tapped, nice and loose. Now let's try it. Ready? Go. Elbow up, plop. Great. I hope that you had some success today. Even if you couldn't get all of the notes, that's why we're going to practice, right? Because practice makes progress. So I want you to really work on your string crossings this week, using that elbow, making sure that your bow hold is nice and loose, no squeezing of the fingers there, and then making sure that your fingers are setting in the correct place on the fingerboard. So we've got that third finger ring that we can listen for, and we've got our tuner as a great resource if we're not quite sure if those other fingers are in tune as well. So in our next lesson, we're going to go over Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or the alphabet song. Did you realize they were the same song? Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're having fun in your journey to learn the viola, and I'll see you next time.